Progress.
Are you an early morning riser?
I used to be. Haven't been for a while. Yeah,
Ask that. You may have ruined
works.
his programmer's credentials. Night owl. Why
Yep.
you can't see me, can you?
No,
You're a gray
no, you
box.
Bring it again. Here I
are.
am.
Gray box.
I
Here's
apologize.
the
Now
big
you
old gray
can't see me.
box.
I'm gonna move things around there a bit. Andrew, have you posted a build to Slack? My Slack isn't loading, and for some reason I can't even log in, so I don't have a.
Yeah, so no, actually. I posted yesterday that I will not have a build today, unfortunately.
No, that's fine.
Um,
That's
I've
realistic.
been busy at work, but the demo is anything I currently have is very broken. Really not worth showing off like a half-finished thing. So
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. We still have things to discuss.
perfect.
And you're going to be in Danny's lab this week, so you'll also be on the vision as well, right?
He was there yesterday. Are you
I was
coming
in
back
yesterday,
yet?
actually.
He was there yesterday.
Yeah, I won't be in the rest of this week, unless I'm really needed.
So what do you want him to do, Frodo?
Um,
He
I
was in all
want
day yesterday.
I would like him to try reader and author as a tester because that may help him get a better clue for how we can do the integration that we're supposed to have. Because Danny and I had a little chat as we usually do before the meeting, Andrew, and one of the things we have actually in the Sloan thing is user puts on headset and the library is available, and this is to integrate with the reader and author stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in our session now. And this is something that you have a huge opportunity to dictate how you would like it to work. We've gone through it in the beginning of the year, but now we're at the 3 month. We need to, take a stock check and see how to make things work.
Yeah, in the sense of libraries, I thought we were planning on having them kind of like contained as JSON objects with a bunch of the URLs to the files that were inside said library. Um,
Yes.
is that not something that fits with the Sloan grant? I haven't read
Yes.
over the Sloan grant since we started, so I'm not sure.
It absolutely does, but the problem with you brilliant programmers, and this goes for the rest of you annoying creatures in the group, you know a lot more than I do. So I still have some holes. So before it actually happens, to me, it's still very vague. So we have to decide when to prioritize it, and also what do you want my programmers to do, and how do you want them to present the data to you? But yes,
Oh, okay.
JSON
Yeah,
is definitely the wrapper for this.
we will have to talk a bit about how you want integration between the two to work, because they're dramatically different pieces of software. Like you actually have a piece of software written in code that runs as an app, and then this is all constrained by web, which is a lot more limiting. So, um, if you just want to export like a collection of links, that shouldn't be a problem. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. I guess that's today's discussion.
That is definitely one of today's discussions.
I think the value of looking at author and reader, because just to recap just quickly before we get started, we originally were writing this so that author and reader were the technologies we were using. That was the original draft. And then we pulled that out and made it PDFs because the Sloan Foundation wanted non-proprietary, everything open source, right? So we pulled that out. And but the advantage of going back and looking at author and reader is that they behave in a way that we want the PDFs to behave. They do things that PDFs don't do. And so I guess the question I ask is, can we make this environment simulate some of that stuff that reader and author can do? And then that begs the question, what can reader and author do? So we start by looking at what they're doing inside the space. Now that they're inside the space, it took a while for a photo to get them programmed for it. And then we turn around and then try to apply that those concepts to the PDF. Does that make sense, Andrew?
Yeah, that makes sense. But what's confusing me a bit is you have reader and author in XR. So we don't want to recreate that in a worse environment. That doesn't make any sense.
No, no, no. The magic is this. The idea, the dream is this. Hang on, I'm just going to give you some links here on the sidebar. Someone is okay. So native applications have higher resolution. So I expect that a user will use something like author to write when it's
Hmm.
just writing, and I
I
expect
would
them to
assume so.
use something like reader when they just read. But when they want to do something more involved, they click a button and the same stuff opens through a web browser in this environment. That's the kind
I
of thing.
see. Okay.
Yeah.
So it sends the data to the link that opens it here.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Because I'm currently charging, not in, I mean, I'm charging for my software because I have no choice. But I do expect to make author and reader free, but that's not enough. This stuff needs to be open source. So I'm just representing another external thing that hopefully other companies will emulate the way we do it, APIs or whatever.
So welcome everybody to our meeting. I just dropped the link to the agenda in our little chat there, the Zoom chat.
Yeah.
Mark sends his regards. He can't be here today. So I think this might be, I'm not sure if Rob's coming. Have you heard anything from Rob, Rhoda?
No, I haven't. So I think we have quorum or whatever they call it. Yeah, there are two links in the sidebar. One is exactly that, which is useful. Please open up the Basecamp agenda, and then there is a link to a video recorded yesterday and only just now updated. Hang on, I'm just going to put my phone on privacy mode because people are texting, which is not what we need right now. Focus, yes, focus. Excellent, right. So, Peter, this is a funny thing. I haven't talked to Alan in forever, but I had a brief chat with Adam yesterday, and he mentioned that he talked to Alan a little bit, and he is also in. Yeah, I'm reading what you're saying, Peter. Anyway, Peter, you still haven't had an opportunity to go to an Apple store to try the headset, right?
Not
Because
yet.
it's the same with Alan. Apparently, he lives 5 minutes away from an Apple store and he hasn't tried it. So I'm wondering what it is about you New Yorkers refusing to get your head in the game, quite literally. Yeah, maybe it's something about New York. I just thought it was a bit funny since it was just the two of you.
Well, the Apple Store in New York isn't sited very conveniently for people coming in.
There's more than one though, right?
Yeah, there's one in the Westchester, which is a big mall with some of the world's worst parking.
And then there is the one in town by.
And going into the city, well, you'd need to be wearing, well, no, see, you're not allowed to wear bulletproof clothing in New York anymore. They made that illegal. Meanwhile, everyone's being stabbed and shot at right and left. So I wouldn't go into the city unless I just taken out an extremely large life insurance policy on myself and had someone who I wanted to be my beneficiary. It's insane down there now.
Okay.
Well, I'd say worse than that is being pushed onto the tracks of the subway.
Oh, yeah, that's bad. I did have a
That's
friend of a friend who was actually wearing chainmail on the way back from an SCA event, and someone tried to stab her and couldn't figure out why the knife wouldn't go in. So, yeah, that's New York.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay, Peter, that makes it clear. Come to London. Try it here. Right. So let's.
I loved London when I was there in law school.
Yes.
That's a civilized city.
Yes. Except a lot of people say it isn't anymore. I disagree. Anyway, so yeah, let's look at the agenda here. So I hope Andrew and Dini on that device, you can really try author and reader soon. I really, really would appreciate your feedback. I cannot test it because I don't have an American account, meaning that I accidentally delete the test flight and I can't reinstall it, which is absolutely crazy. Same with you, Fabienne. I look forward to testing comments from you. That's really all I have to say for that now, except to say, please click on the second link that I posted. You can just leave the sound off, but it's just to show you an environment that I worked in yesterday. It's relevant for our next discussion bit.
Okay, shall we get started then?
Oh yeah,
We have enough.
I'm just asking if you can click on the link to look at the minute-long video that I
Okay, so
recorded.
that's, is that in our, is that in our agenda?
No,
Can
no,
that be
no. I
looked
just
at?
posted the link here in just in our chat.
Okay, so we're not gonna follow the agenda, okay.
Oh, it is the agenda. It is author and reader vision testing in progress. It's related to that.
Japanese society in the 1600s had a very specific look. Hair played an important part in stature.
Look at the beautiful flowers.
Your mission is to attend Jasper and Edgar's newest birthday party on 18th May from 1 to 3
I expect you have seen it. Just please tell me when you've seen it, so we don't just hang out.
Watching it now.
There's no interesting audio, just in case you're wondering.
I'm wondering,
The hairstyles an inch in Japan looked intriguing.
that's Karate Kid, right?
No, Shogun.
Shogun, okay. I'm wondering the documents down below where you can add material. I'm wondering if it can be not horizontal, but vertical, running beside the actual document. So you can do this.
Yeah, you can absolutely do that. That's trivial. That you can do that yourself as a user. You can scale them and put them anywhere you want. And the act of doing that, I think, is very educational for how Apple has done it. Sometimes it's really great, sometimes it's not so great. And yeah, okay, so everyone's seen it, right? At least enough. Okay, because it's mostly the beginning, right? Dini, book launch.
Hey, I want to thank everybody who came. It was a good turnout. We had 47 people, and then I had about 5 that couldn't make it because of doctor's appointments and illnesses and stuff like that. But it was a great turnout. We had folks from, almost every continent. Michael Joyce was there, so a lot of hypertext pioneers were in the room, and they hadn't seen each other in years.
Wow.
Which I thought was also exciting. John McDade was there. John McDade and Michael Joyce were part of a group called TENAC back in the late 80s, early 90s. And yeah, it's recorded, and know that I'll be putting this online once Andrew edits the video for me. He'll get it today. So he'll probably be up next week. Anyway, yeah, it was just really wonderful. And it was heartening to see everybody together. Some of these people are very old. Some have cancer. So we managed to pull people together at a really good time. So it's a historical document as much as it's a celebration. The book is out. It's free until the 21st of April as a PDF. So if you want to look at what we're talking about in terms of textual issues for born digital text, it might be interesting for you. And but if not, thanks for listening. Working on the next book now.
The next. Are you writing a book about the next or just the next book?
There's my book.
This call
It's
is sponsored by.
It's pretty. It's Cambridge Press. I think that's cool. But yeah, so the next book is going to be like a history of born digital literature. And I'm sitting on all the archives in the lab, so it's going to be fun to write. It's going to take years to do that one, though.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yes, absolutely, Peter. Nick Montfort, Twisty Little Passages, fantastic book. I'll type the title in here for you. Wonderful book. Came out a while back, but I still see it as the Bible of the history of IF. It's published by MIT Press. Got it right here. Montfort. pushy little passages, an approach to interactive fiction. And I think it came out 2003. And Nick Montfort is the kind of king of IF, literary IF.
IF, you mean interactive fiction?
Yeah. Yeah, MIT is great. That's probably where I want to put my next book. All right, so next on the agenda, back to our agenda.
Yeah, on Monday we'll be talking a little bit more about inviting people to the book and symposium. Please think about who to invite, right? Just think crazy. If it's someone you know, great. If it's someone you don't, please just start sending it in because we will start inviting people soon. So that's that. Simple.
I want to mention, and we didn't put this on the agenda announcements, Frodo, but you and I are participating on Sunday, noon my time, in a Discord meeting with VR, AR people. And I'm seeing that event as a possible way to recruit folks for this group, as well as for our symposium. So,
Yeah,
and you and I can talk about what we're talking about.
I'm going to just put the, I think everybody knows them. 1 second. I'm just adding this to the agenda. Please reload, everyone. Jimmy 6 Degree of Freedom. Such a cool Twitter handle. So he wanted to know what we're doing, what we're up to. So we're going to present that. Thank you, Deanie. That was a bit of an oversight for me to forget. Deanie, you're muted.
Yeah, we're just talking about who to invite. And I was like, that's part of why we're doing this thing on Sundays, to get some more people.
Exactly.
New people.
Any other announcements from anyone?
I want to thank Peter for all the information you've been posting in Slack. That's been very interesting. So that's helpful. So just keep that coming.
Will do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So going on to the first section. So the reason I show the video, and I should probably have shown it now, but anyway, is just a little bit of insight. And I really want to hear the rest of you who's been using the vision, what you feel. First of all, using it in public, it really depends on where it is. It can very quickly become uncomfortable because I can't really see what's happening to my sides. And if I have my work things in front of me, they tend to obscure other people. So if I'm sitting in a place where people can walk, it's not always that cool, which was really, really interesting because I thought the AR bit would be better. On the other side of that, nobody is shocked by the device. The other day, this lady came up to me. She works for a company, and she said, "Oh, that's the Apple Vision, isn't it? Can you do this? Can you do that?" And so she wants to, have a deeper dialogue with us. So no one seems insulted or like what weirdness is going on there. But at the same time, the vision. I hope they update the eyes to be a bit clearer because it isn't always clear that I can see. It's an odd thing. When it comes to layout of the workspaces, that's also very interesting. When I'm in an actual environment, I need to have space in front of me, despite the fact that I can overlay. That was the thing. I may have mentioned that particular thing before. And also, as you saw in the video, when I put things in my library or dining room or whatever it is, if I leave the room and look back at the room, I can see the back of these screens. So it becomes an X-ray view of the house. That was really, really surprising. And I think that's really relevant because it relates to Peter's mentioning of memory palaces. But the Vision doesn't have good window management. So if I restart anything on the Vision, all of these disappear. I have to set it up again. So the Vision native stuff have a lot of benefits. They also have quite a few drawbacks in how they can be interacted with now. And what is, of course, really annoying is that WebXR, at least on the Vision, doesn't allow for pass-through video. So that's why when we put on the headset, we really are going into thinking cap, and you really have to sit on a swivel chair or equivalent unless you have the luxury of having an entire room for WebXR.
Rhoda, I didn't have the same problem with the Vision and the location as you're having. I wonder why that would be.
What do you mean?
You said that you're having trouble like with the vision part, like things being clear. I'm not having that trouble at all.
No. I don't have a problem with the clarity. The clarity is perfect. What else was I saying at that point?
You said you're disappointed with this. I thought you said seeing through, like the clarity
Oh,
of your eye.
what I meant was I can put screens, move around the house, and then I can literally see through the walls to see the screens, which is really cool. And that really plays to the memory palace. You put different information in different parts of your environment. However, if you restart the vision or restart the app or reset the view, they all disappear. That's what I mean. So, but these are early days, and this is window management. I'm sure Vision OS will be updated to deal with these things, but there currently are issues. Other issues are I use mouse and trackpad. I have dedicated for the Vision when I'm writing, and the trackpad is surprisingly useful. It's tangible and it's nice. But the problem is very often my eyes, I just look at something and it thinks my eye is now a cursor rather than the trackpad. So there are all these teething things that is just worth bringing up, hopefully will be fixed. Any other comments on experiences with the Vision Pro?
Well, I've been going back and forth between Vision Pro and the Quest 2, right? Because I have the Quest 2 that the program owns here at the house. And people have talked about how heavy the Vision Pro is, but I find the Quest 2 heavier. The Vision Pro is much easier on my head. I like the way it straps in. The one complaint I have is that we have to use that battery, right? It's not batteryless. So I'm hoping that the next iteration will, facilitate a change in that. But I find it much easier than the Quest. And Quest 3, of course, it has a better see-through experience, but I just find the Vision Pro better. The only disadvantage is, this is what you and I were talking about before the meeting, is like, what is the point of the Vision 2, this Vision Pro that's different from Quest? What does it offer us?
Did you say you felt the Quest has a better see-through?
No, I said it doesn't. The Vision Pro does.
Because there's so many aspects to that. Okay, no, that makes sense.
But
oh, sorry, Deanie.
We were talking this morning before the meeting, because we're meeting at 7:30 before we all get together at 8. And it seems to me we've got two things happening. We've got the Apple Vision Pro experience over here, and the Quest, the Vibe, Rift, all those stuff over here, right? So the other headsets. And there seems to be at this moment a demarcation between the two environments, right? With these being entertainment, Magic sports and all these things that you can do that's fun, and then some basic business stuff. But over here, we've got this thing that's just waiting for a purpose. It's just kind of waiting for a real purpose. And I don't think it's found it yet. And that's because, there's people still trying to figure out what to do with it. And that's what I see the opportunity for us to define it. So, yeah, just to finish the thought though, before I turn this over, is that, so I'm imagining, and I mentioned this to Frodo this morning, I'm teaching that class in the fall on this topic on spatial computing. And one of the things I think will be useful for them is to make an environment. So if you've been playing in the Apple Vision Pro, one thing you can do is that I think is very exciting is you can go into a landscape, and you could go to like the Joshua Tree National Park or to Island, Hawaii, right? You can and it's just engulfs you. It's immersive. It's beautiful, right? Gorgeous. Those aren't hard to make. Our students can make those. So it's not like making a game where we have to use Unity. They can actually produce that. And I'm imagining that those kinds of activities where it's more of experience, more intellectual, more I don't use the word spiritual, but more, brain than it is just, oh, look what I can do. And know that I do like the fun stuff on the Quest, but I think there is a difference, and we can tease out more and more with our project what that is, and with our side quests especially. And I think when we do pick our side quest, which I imagine is coming down the pipeline, is that we should make a list of them and start to think about what we're saying that Vision Pro and things like it in the future can do for us. I'll stop.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. But Fabian, do you have any comments on using the vision so far? But also particularly all of you, the text, the reading ability in the vision is amazing, right?
Yes, to me the reading is the main difference. Like I go back and forth between the different headsets, and yes, there are differences in terms of weight, balance, etc. Um, but I think for people who would spend an hour or two a day, I would argue there were small differences. But in terms of readability of actual text, which is, I would imagine, like the main limiting factor, because most academic research is, it's not code, it's not videos. Like it can be a very important part of the publication, but in practice, the one type of document is 98% text at least. So even if it's like a mathematical equation for a model, it's still, in the end, it's still like a couple of characters. Then if you need to get a headache after 10 minutes, it doesn't work. So in my opinion, that's the biggest differentiator. It's in terms of usage. I think it is the same kind of challenge, social challenges as before. Namely, yes, people are comfortable with it, or at least they don't freak out with it, even in a coffee shop or in a library or whatnot. But are we users comfortable with it? Which is we should be, but in practice, I think there is the kind of like sense of, am I being seen? Am I seeing other people? That is still unclear and thus a little bit awkward. And I think for a lot of people, that's basically solved by, like, if you're in your own home office or office where you can close the door, that big problem goes away. I would argue it's not really a technical problem. Maybe it can also be solved by having like a literal red flag on your desk that say, "Hey, I'm busy. I'm in VR. I'm working," and I don't think there is necessarily a need for like the, what's the name, the I forgot the name that they use. But yeah, to me that's the same way in the churrascaria, where you can have a little flag on the desk, say, "Hey, I want more meat," or "I'm done." It's not a hard solution to find, but I think that's still maybe a luxury that most people don't have. Say, okay, I need to be, don't interrupt me for 1 hour because I'm reading those documents, editing them, sorting them, doing my murder wall kind of information. But in terms of usage, yeah, to me, that's being able to conveniently enjoy actually text. That's a new thing, and I still need to be to, it's a little bit like we saw in your 1 hour minute 30 seconds video, through like organizing those things in place, document, photos, whatever, and with a permanence aspect to it. You leave the room and you're still there. Same, that wasn't feasible until now. It was feasible as kind of low resolution image, but not actual documents that you can interact with. Yeah, with still some limitation. As far as I know, I don't think you can have like a set of 5 rooms like this, a room like this in the library, and a room like this at home, and with different layouts. So still a lot to explore. But yeah, that's my naive take.
I'm going to
Thank you,
say, I think
Fabian.
space and safety are going to be a problem with VR environments for quite a while, right?
Well, I'm seeing. Yeah. Sorry, Dini. The connection. I overspoke. Hi, Rob. By the way, the three-body problem. We've seen the beginning of it, and it is really good. But I think we need to develop a bit of a language here, because AR and VR, of course, we all know what the difference is. But I think the kind of VR that we have in movies, where you can walk around and do whatever, and if someone punches you, you feel it, is something quite different yet again. It is, yeah, maybe simulation, Dini, is a better word, because the realities we're dealing with now is you're still in your physical body, and that's becoming more interesting as we move along.
Some of the early cyberpunk, I mean, Rob is really into this. He can add to it, but SimStim was an idea that it's what the Matrix is all about, jacking in, taking yourself to some simulated world, right? But the SimStim comes from Neuromancer. We see it also in Sinners by Pat Cadigan, another one of my favorite writers. But they were not called VR. They were mostly seen as simulated environments.
Yeah. Yeah, and hyperreality, that's also a bit Baudrillard, of course. So Peter, you need to get a headset on your head. Right. Rob, what is your experience with the vision so far? What do you think are the highs and lows? And have you had a chance to try author or reader yet?
My experience is that it's not ready. I find it very difficult to work with documents. It's difficult to type.
Do you use
I
a
haven't.
Bluetooth? Do you use a keyboard or not?
Yeah, I got a keyboard that's just for the VR or for the vision. But it's still clumsy. It's probably because I don't quite grok how to do it. But there's not much guidance on how to do things. I did download Reader into the headset, so I'll get some experience with that. I can try Author.
Yeah, you've been given a invitation link for test flight to try it. It's really the thing that surprises me about the environmental where you are issue is that I do very much agree with Dini that when you're thinking, it's really good to be in a completely plain space, 100%. But currently, when you're in a 100% artificial environment, you don't see your keyboard or your trackpad. So that is a major limitation. So that's why I tend to work at least in half real space. And when I do that, using the Bluetooth keyboard, the normal Apple one, I find the lag is incredibly small. It feels natural, but it did take me a couple of weeks of this and that and getting used to it before I could actually properly work in there. Another thing I found is that
You're not gonna like what I just wrote, Froda.
Oh no, I was just going to agree with that because no, I fully agree with that because my recent trying to move it about, in different environments. The reason I've been working in public is a little bit to see if I'll talk to someone and get their perspective, but it's also, is it basically a massive laptop screen that's easy to carry? And what I'm finding more and more, no, you want to use this in a private space like your office, and there you can speak. Siri on Vision is phenomenal. Right, so to use Siri for annotations, yeah, 100%, absolutely 100%. You should be able to type as well, but yeah, no, absolutely no question, Dini. Fully agree with you on that.
That means, I mean, this now it goes back to text, right? I mean, now we're back to talking about text. So, composing text orally, Rob, as opposed to writing. Now we're shifting back, and once again, we're talking about the second orality, which we discussed way back at the beginning of all this. And so being able to compose on the fly with our voice and our minds composing intellectually, that's going to be a different shift. That's going to be a shift in the way we function. And so, yeah, when we think, we're going to be thinking different, to quote Apple.
That's a major shift. Cognitively, I'm not sure I still have the neurons to do that.
Okay, you know what? This might be, so Andrew doesn't have new code today. We're still going to look at what he had last week and have another discussion. And we're going to be doing 3-month review, but Dini, is it okay if we do a little bit of design talk? Because I think it's very related to the topic, because then I can show. Okay, well, I'm going to show a really brief slideshow then. I've been inability to get these things moving. Please scream if you can't see my screen. Right, so just a few slides. So here is, okay, one thing that is weird about being native is you have these rounded corners. It almost feels like everything is a floating iPad app. And so in Reader, this is what you would see now.
I actually like the rounded.
It kind of depends on what you're doing. It depends on what's behind it to me. Right, so if you tap on that, you get a bar on top in Reader as it is now. So I'm suggesting adding a few things. Currently, what you can do, and thank you, Fabian, for making me do this, you can have it all spread out as a huge thing with all the pages. You can also have all the pages horizontal, so you can walk around or you can move your hands to see them. But this is what Dini talked about last week. She said she wants to make notes when she's reading. So this is what I thought about. You have a little button thing, add notes, and it opens a thing underneath where you can write your notes about the document, not about a page, the whole document. Whether it's connected to the document or not, I don't know, it depends on implementation, but at least this text entry area refers to this one. The reason I wanted you guys to see the video early on is because the writing area is nicer when it's at an angle compared to reading sometimes. So ideally, these things should not be one thing. But this is an example of where voice notes should be absolutely fine, at least for parts of it, which the vision already supports, right? Please note, all I'm talking about here is the native app, but the idea should overlap with what we're doing in XR and the information should. So first of all, what do you feel about the idea of having a text entry thing optional underneath? Makes sense, right?
Yeah, and as I asked, and you said it was possible, is to not have it underneath like a keyboard, but to have it on the side like marginalia. You can actually have the option of putting it next to, like, for example, if I had that as a vertical document so that I can make notes and even link a line from the abstract to my notes.
Yeah, there are some issues with that.
I want a command line interface. Please give me a command line interface.
No, not going to happen.
Oh, so old school, Peter, so old school.
So something we've gone through before, this is just jumping back. When you have a vertical document, if you have a 2-page spread, it slightly makes sense. If it's 1-page spread, often the margin is different right and left page. So it gets very wonky like this. This is only when dealing with an original PDF. If we're doing the HTML or the plain text, of course it isn't there. But yeah, I mean, these are absolutely things to be discussed. So, right. Anyway, so here's the notion that you have some sort of way to add text, right, wherever it might be. And then you close that, of course, and then we tap again to get the thing on top. And now this is the second half of this. There's the notion of a different kind of library view. So if you click on that, forget the actual text. It's just a screenshot from author. So just pretend it's a name of a document, each one, right? The document we were in is highlighted. This works exactly like the concept map view in author, meaning that these documents would only be connected based on the comments you have written about them.
Where's it highlighted, Frodo? I'm not seeing it.
The middle one has a bit of a line around it.
Okay, the circle, the cylinder.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
It's probably not the best style, but so the logic is, as you know here. So pretend this is a document and these are the comments you've written, right? They will then, if there are any other books or documents rather that are in your comments, any other that have the same thing, like one would be electronic literature, let's say. If you just write the word electronic literature and then you select one of these things, you will get a line to it. It's just one view, but as you can see on top, there can also be a timeline of all your documents. You can list them just plain list by titles, because depending on use, you want to have a different view, and author, which is essentially the same thing. So that was the key thing I wanted to show today. And then it went back to, what do we really need? And what we really need is better ways to read. And that's really discussions we've had quite a while ago, where at least the abstract should be super clean and easy to read and not hidden in a small ACM kind of a document. So we really are at a stage where HTML or plain text presented better is important. And if we have them all as floating things, which is what Andrew is working on now, how we choose to interact with them and how we choose to kind of hide them when we don't need them will be interesting. So hang on.
Andrew, what are your thoughts? Andrew, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're talking specifically reader and author right now, so I wouldn't have control specifically. It makes sense like for the margin and base if we want to carry something like that over. I know we talked about sticky notes early on from Rob's suggestion, which I haven't forgotten about. Still on my list of things to someday get to. So I think that would be a similar integration for ours.
So the notion here is where can we most cheaply and effectively experiment with different things. I am doing some experiments in native, but the idea is really as quickly as possible you should be able to do these views in the WebXR. And a lot of the components I feel that you have. So some of the views at the end there, ideally, you would be able to click a button in Reader or associated software and open it up in our WebXR view. Because there we have,
So you're saying you want to have the entire interface able to be exported into our WebXR one?
no. What I'm saying is that actually, Fabian, have you had a chance to look at what Andrew did last week?
Which was?
I'm going to give you a link because, Andrew, this will help answer your question when we look at that together. I'm just going to pop in a link here, and please, for those of you who have the opportunity, please have a look at it in a headset. Actually, I'll give you the direct link. So this is the latest one, and then I will address the question. Sorry, I have to step away for a few seconds while that happens. I thought you guys were all going to enter the headset to look at the code. Fabian, do you want to have a look?
I can't have a look. Wait, no, I can have a look now. Yes, sure.
thought
But
you
I
wanted to-
saw the video already. It's selecting or extracting references from the bibliography, roughly.
Yeah, what we have so far is a view you're in a cylinder, and you have primarily the main interaction item is one reference where you can move around, scale it, and you can choose to extract specific items or not. So the question is, what should you be able to do in there? And that was what I was going on in a little bit about with the system here, where, for instance, if you do that typing, notes about the PDF, you should be able to do it in Reader or in the XR environment, and it should store it in the same way. So depending on how flat you want it or how dimensional you want it, you should have the options.
It's the storing it in the same way bit that gets more complicated because once again you have an app that can do a lot more than WebXR can. So if you want like like the data to be the same, like the text content, that's probably possible. But it of course won't have the same functionality overall.
I'm not looking for the same functionality. So one of the items on our agenda today is to do a little bit of a review of where we are. So I've been looking, well, Dean and I in our meeting, we were looking at the original Sloan pitch. And in there, it does state that the user should have access to their library, and this software should work with external software, author and reader. So what I mean is essentially use visual meta to communicate. And that can absolutely, as you said in the beginning of this call, Andrew, be visual meta in the form of JSON. So I'm not talking about the same functionality exactly, but I'm saying that the last views that I showed, like the big window thing, that probably suits your world, so to speak, better. So we need to look at how to go in and out of that. Hi, Peter.
Yeah, I think it would really help if we had a way to textually represent what's happening gesturally inside of the interface. So then we'd be able to mock user interactions with replayable text and ideally record what someone's doing physically in the environment so that that again could be replayed later on, saved off and stored. I'm not quite sure how we do it. I don't know whether anyone's done a language for it yet, but it's something maybe along the lines of the picture language from the SICP text, describing things in abstract terms, like, 2/3 to the left, the little Esper script from Blade Runner offers a couple ideas there, but we really just need somehow, and I'm not sure what the best way, maybe Andrew would have some ideas of textually representing what's going on so that people without a headset could, again, type up a script as to what would be happening if they had the hardware on, and then play that through a simulator, see what's going on if they made those interactions. The again idea what I have in mind here, I'm not sure how well I'm articulating it.
Yeah, we have talked about sharing things. By the way, you can see this my screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it's better to see it properly. That we have these interactions where we can move this around, which is kind of amazing actually. The rendering quality is not bad, but of course it isn't. So we have, you can detach this one around. Yeah, kind of host it. And then we have options for things like find a document is quite powerful. Here it shows this in the document. So that's what I mean. We have these things. So it's a matter of being able to go from one environment into this environment. So here you can see a PDF and reader. And currently doesn't have anything useful on top here, but I could imagine a button in there that says, in addition to what we just looked at, open up in WebXR. And it at least takes the metadata of this document into our WebXR environment. And Dini, to answer your other question, So this is how I had it. I had the writing below, but I can always do that.
Yeah.
Sorry. That doesn't.
Marginality is a really important part of writing on text, right? It has been. We may move away from that one day, but people still write in their text.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we'll be writing on the document itself though, because I think computationally, so to speak, it's better to have it off. Because once you're starting with layers, because my feeling is that it becomes quite complicated. But the idea of being able to select text, so selecting with the eyes, actually, it's just really hard. Let's try to do this.
May I say something else?
Yeah, of course.
The other thing is that we're talking about in the case studies is what we're, the first part of the case studies is what do I do now, right? That's why I want to write the case studies in two pieces. How do I read text and understand text today? But I think a better question, once that's completed, is what is a new way of doing this? What other ways can we do this in this new environment? We don't have to have we don't have to do the same activities in these two places. They can be something new, right? But we can't really tease out the new till we know, to establish the practices, the current practices. So I'm interested in being able to do the things I do right now, but not really. I mean, I've always been very interested in doing something totally different. That's what's driving me to this project. I mean, I don't want to use XR to do the things I'm already doing. I want to do things differently.
No, you don't. You want to
can't.
do it different.
Different.
Do different.
Do
Yes.
different. But we have to go through a process. It's a methodical process of working through the problem. And so step one, how do I use text now? What's possible in this environment like that? Okay, now let's leave that behind. What's possible in a new way of looking at things?
Yeah, I mean that's why, of course, the case studies are important, because the case studies will, of course, partly be a little bit about how things are done now, but primarily they should be about what is the actual results needed. And we have decided that we expect the data and metadata in the system we're building to be perfect, because it is possible to do that. It doesn't exist perfect, but we can make that assumption. So then the question is what interactions we can have. And if, reading back at our pitch, it is quite clear to me that we also need to look at reading, good old-fashioned reading. And, so one thing obviously also to think about is AI, and AI will not be core to this work. So doing large analysis of large documents and stuff is a bit of, sorry, Fabian, please go ahead. I would.
In terms of what's feasible, and I think it's a rather low-hanging fruit from the demo number 5 that I just tried, is exporting the extracted citation, but references to Mendeley or
I'm
whatever.
sorry. I have to go downstairs. I think the plumber might have arrived. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, I don't think the plumber knows Mendeley and citation reference, but that would be good. But otherwise, because the thing is, once you've bother, quote unquote, moving those reference out, then what? So you know that you can move them and it's good, but I think if you can export to a known format, just using Mendeley as an example, whatever bibliographical reference one use with a format that is open, and you press a huge button that says save, and that it's a URL or whatever you get out, and you can use it on your good old desktop after removing the headset. I think it's something. It's not super exciting in terms of is it like a generally. I mean, it's a usable, I would say, in an academic workflow. Like, okay, you have a new set of reference. Maybe they are even ordered a certain way, and maybe it gave you idea to write a new paper based on those reference because it sparked a new idea. So I would say it's a low hanging fruit to get done, and it's again part of a workflow that people that would use such a tool should be, I believe, interested in. So that's what I would do, and without much more thought than this, like maybe it is pointless, but it's like hooked on the traditional way. And then I would get personally more motivated learning other gesture or importing my own data, because I know that the work I'll have done there will work outside of the headset.
I heard half of that. I had to run. Can you please repeat the intro?
It's
Sorry.
basically export to Mendeley or whatever bibliographical tool you use, because right now you get the cost, quote unquote, of learning new gesture. It is not perfect the way maybe it's just the way that you learn it that is also not perfect, not necessarily the implementation, but the point is it's challenging, and you don't get which is fine, but at least you need to get the reward, and the reward is those citation or those references rather ordered in the way that you move them in space and that you can share with a colleague or with yourself back to the more traditional way of the desktop. Let's say that would be what I would do as a low-hanging fruit from demo number 5.
Yeah, we expect to have full references in HTML or something. For our working document series from the ACM Hypertext Conference, Mark has gone through and cleaned that up. So that we have. And it is also available through Visual Meta, of course, at the back of the document. Does that, I mean, because these Mendeley and so on, they have their own databases, but it is quite proprietary and kind of secret sauce. So
No, everyone uses BibTeX as a standard interchange format, so there's no trouble in moving them between different reference managers. Also, if we have numbered citations, it might actually be easier if we were keying in the citation numbers textually rather than having to angle our hand to send a raycast beam out to intersect with the citation reference on the page. Then I could just like glance, my eyes would be on the number pad and I'd be hitting 23 as opposed to trying to line up with reference 23 in the big long list of references and then twitch my fingers at the right moment, but I haven't tried it on yet, so that's purely speculative.
Selecting is really not a problem. It's getting better and better with every iteration. Yeah, Peter, you really need to find a headset to try somehow. It's I'm sorry that New York has become so horrible that the Apple Store is not really accessible, but it is a different thing. And even for those who have a Quest 1, the world is completely different. Right. So assuming that we have perfect data through whatever means, then the next question becomes how we should try to go about interacting with it. Because, hang on, I'm just going to scroll to our thing here. So what we have in the Sloan thing that we kind of need to stick to is, yeah, our end goal for the software development is to allow a user to put on an XR headset, access their PDF library, and this is really important. It has to access their PDF library through whatever means we decide it's going to have to exist. Read and interact with documents in XR and traditional systems, and export their work in traditional useful formats. This workflow will be possible because of the integration we have with author and reader. And so I'm very, very happy to work with Andrew on getting the right kind of JSON from the reader library up into the headset, especially now that we have reader in Vision as well. Of course, we don't have it for Quest, but ideally that shouldn't make any difference. It should still work. And so target users are scholars, including university students, performing a literature review for a paper they're writing. That's also very, very important. So then we just have a few more things. On first use, a view of the user's library of PDF documents will appear. And then we have interactions with that we've just given a list. We don't have to follow this exactly, but it's a full document, components of the document, multi-documents, external documents, and so on. So we should at least really look at how to make it super readable, right? So now that we have both Fabienne and Andrew here, I'm just gonna ask, in order to have a user have a bulk of documents on their computer, Mac, Windows, Linux, whatever, and they provide some means through which that is online, what is the mechanism through which the metadata of those documents plus the metadata of the library itself, meaning primarily which documents are favorited and stuff, should be transmitted up? I'd like to hear that. I have to do something behind the computer. I spilled something, but I can hear you. I'm still in the room.
Yeah, I mean, like as a bare minimum, that's just essentially a list, just an array of objects. JSON works great for that. You have a list of URLs, and then since it's JSON, you could easily add some kind of tag that just says it's a favorite or whatnot. That's not complicated. And that is in line with our original idea of how we would handle libraries, because we'd be able to import libraries from author reader. But also it means we could prepare pre-made libraries that come packaged with this project we're working on. So even if the user hasn't yet created their own library, they can work with, say, the ACM papers or any other library we put together beforehand. So that shouldn't be that complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Also looking at Fabienne's comment at the same time, Zotter BibTeX. Yeah, I mean, don't forget, guys, Visual Meta is a container for anything. The self-citation is BibTeX. So that is completely the same thought. All Visual Meta does is basically function as a prompt, saying to reading systems, the following is this and that. So yeah, BibTeX from Zotero, yeah, it makes complete sense. It's technically exactly the same. So when you talk about a list, Andrew, how do you want that list to look? What should I tell my guys to build, and how should it be transmitted?
I mean, just it could just be JSON. It doesn't need the content. It just needs sources, and the sources need to be links, like paths, right? Um, Everything that we've been working with so far in our XR project has been links online, so we can access them. Um, Technically speaking, if you have them on the machine itself, relative links will be fine. So if say reader knows where the different documents are on the machine, then you can do a relative path. You will not be able to share that library if it's relative. So you'd have to have another tag somewhere on that library that says it's just a private library. But as a bare minimum, that seems to be all you'd need. Of course, the downside with all of this is that we've shifted our design in the direction of working with the HTML exports of PDFs. And if we go back to actual PDFs, we kind of have to scrap a lot of the functionality we have right now, which is okay. We can do that.
I don't think we need to change that. I'm totally happy with working really hard on making sure that the HTML can be rendered in a useful fashion. So Danny, I'm not sure if you agree, but I don't think we necessarily have to have the PDFs as such. What do you think? Looking for a screenshot from earlier.
The main reason why we're using the HTML versus just a pure PDF is just because the HTML has tagging. So we have everything labeled. So if we need to find where the citations are, we can just go to the citations, as opposed to PDFs, which are essentially just blocks of text without any real descriptors of what things are. and they're
Yeah.
all formatted inconsistently, which is also a real pain.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm sharing on the screen now is one of our earlier discussions. This is a document, and we're using the HTML as the source for it, not the PDF. So that means that many ways to have it readable, but right now you can click on a section and you read only that section. So, Danny, what do you feel? Do we have a strong requirement that the actual PDF has to be in the WebXR, or that the content has to be there nicely formulated, formatted from HTML?
Here's what we promised Sloan. So I think it's very possible. We didn't say we're going to use PDFs. We just said we were going to experiment with text, open source, in this XR environment, right? This WebXR. So, and this is what Mark Anderson's been, nagging us about, right? And I'm saying that in a loving way. He doesn't want us to be stuck on PDFs. So, and I agree with him. We should be able to look at different types of textualities. PDF being the easiest one, because that's what we have in our library. So it goes back to what do we hold in our libraries? Do I hold web pages? Well, yeah, I do have, tabs, bookmarks for web pages in my library. I have documents. So it's not just one thing or the other. It could be both. And by the way, I have a question. I've been looking at the last build we had, and I can't get out of it now.
Well, just click on the click your app button, your digital
I
copy.
did.
Oh, it didn't go out?
Taking me back. It's like it's stuck. I'm stuck. I keep clicking and it keeps coming back. I
Yeah,
can't.
there's no
I'm like in a.
specific exit that I've built in yet. There should be like a button at the top of the headset that exits the current app, which is what you'd use, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, I got that, but we should have some sort of way to get out of that document, right? Without having to click the headset.
I suppose we could
Maybe
put like
not.
an exit button of some sort
Yeah.
in the
What happens when you
maybe the prism menu.
what happens when you press the digital crown?
It did this time. Last time it took me to taking a photograph or a video.
Oh, that's the left hand button, the right hand button. Are you sure that's
Yeah. Yeah, right here. Right.
really?
I'm okay now. But I think for usability purposes, this is like using a back button on a web page, right? It's better to have something on the page so that people don't use the back button.
Yeah, but the standard to leave full immersive view is to press the digital crown. But okay.
Just
Right,
saying.
so-
So I'm going to try to pick up your other app, Rhoda, now from Test Light.
Thank you. Yeah, Peter, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, instead of passing paths around, I'd like to see us do more with content addressable memory and just have a hash of the substance of the document as opposed to worrying about where it's located. Then if I got a copy from ACM and someone got a copy from IEEE, they'd still have the same content hash, and then we'd be able to recognize that as being the same document. And we might want to do that at more than one level. We could have a hash for the extracted text from whatever file format the document is in, and we could have a hash for the document's canonical name, and we could have a hash for the document in PDF format, one for in HTML format, so that we'd be able to find things without having to worry about where they're located. And to save even more bandwidth, if we had a designated server or federation of servers that could resolve mnemonic identifiers to the actual substantive hash values, it'd be even easier. So we could have our purple grouse as being the key, which the federated hash mapping server would then convert to the hash lookup ID for the content of whatever document I had mapped to purple grouse. Then the system would be able to pull that in from wherever it was, whether it was a local copy, an email that someone had sent me 5 years ago, recognize that as being the same document that I meant when I attached the purple grouse designator.
Peter, worthwhile thoughts, but I think it's a little out of scope for what we can do now. Now it's just a matter of your local library in the headset. But we should definitely have that as a wider discussion. Sorry, Peter. That gets into a lot of technical layers. And Fabian also.
So I put a couple of links in the chat on Zotero, because yes, I mentioned Mendeley because I believe it's quite popular. But Zotero, it does roughly the same as far as I know, but it's open source. So namely that if I want to build Zotero now, I can. I don't want to, but I can. And I installed it on my desktop because I used it a little while ago actually. And I reinstalled it as a test of how easy it would be to import, let's say, the result of reference that would have been moved after an XOR session. And yes, BibTeX comes first. There is also Zotero RDF, I imagine, who I remember, and a couple of others. There is also a JSON one, which I did not know existed, called CSL JSON. But all these are just example, again, in terms of what's the low-hanging fruit of moving those around and then getting the result out of the headset. But I think it basically flattens it down. Namely, what you have at the end is a list of ordered references, which is a good step. But arguably, maybe when you want to go back to it, you also don't lose where they are. Namely, that if you put one a little bit more to the left, even though when you flatten it down, like the one that is on top, on the, let's say, y coordinate, if it's above the others, it's number one. If it's second, it's number two, etc. It's rather direct. But maybe you put one on the one that is on the left there, because that's where you put reference related to computer science, and the one on the right a bit more on, I don't know, sociology or whatever. And thus, if you could hijack the format to, usually there is a comment section, say, hey, I use CSL JSON or BibTeX, and then I use the extra field that Zotero is going to ignore, ideally not destroy, but then you can still keep, or even like metadata, like, oh, I moved that reference on Wednesday at 5 p.m. So my point being that exporting to a well-known format that academics can rely on when they do the work, without ideally losing the new information that was added that is specific to XR, basically XYZ coordinates, and maybe time of movement or something like that.
So on that, and thank you, we have to make some decisions, and today is the day to make the decisions. Dini, I know you're in your own world now, but of course you can hear me. So the question is, for what we're trying to do before the summer, how important do we think it is that the rendered PDF should be in XR? We do not think that's important, right? We think the data should be there.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, okay.
yeah.
So that means that we officially now give up on trying to get the PDF into the XR. The PDF can be in Reader or whatever software. So that means that from what Fabien is saying, we now have to decide on what metadata from the PDF should go to the WebXR and how. So considering we're now in the metadata world, basically plain text, which will hopefully be sourced from the HTML version, so we don't have weird issues. We have to decide what should be readable. Peter, I'm seeing what you're writing here in the comments, but the thing is, native and WebXR have very, very different pros and cons. And we really now need to play to the strengths of both. So when you're in what Andrew has built, the resolution for text is considerably lower. WebXR doesn't support native resolution, so reading is suboptimal in that environment. What is optimal is seeing relationships. So the key thing we've already started with, the references, as Fabien was talking about, the means to deal with, is fantastic. So to have a huge space to see how things relate is probably where we want to go, not just having a reference to exact part of the document, because you'll do that elsewhere. Dini, please take over. I'm going on forever.
So I want to know what Andrew has to say about this. In 6 months, I have to turn in a report, and the report tells the Sloan folks what we have done that we promised within those 6 months. Did we make everything we promised? And if not, why? And if we did beyond that, what do we do? So that's coming up in 3 months, right? So this is really important to have this 3-month talk because we're moving towards the next piece of this before the first formal documents due. So I want to turn this to Andrew and say to you, you've been working with PDFs, which is something we did promise Sloan, right? We did say we're going to work with PDFs, but we also said we're going to work with documents in general. So we're not limited to PDFs. How much would this move towards other types of docs like HTML hinder you or help you?
No, we've made the switch off of just rendering straight PDFs, at least for a while, with these last month of development. It's much better. Rendering a PDF as is inside the headset was frankly terrible because of the resolution issues. So now just focusing on bits of content, which is easiest to get from the HTML versions of the PDFs. It's given us a lot crisper text. I know it's only been citations so far. The goal is obviously to move beyond that. It's just been the easiest place to prototype out base interactions and whatnot. So I think the route we're going down now makes a lot of sense. But of course, I can adapt to whatever. Ultimately, I'm just here for implementation, and the rest of the group is behind the decision making. So as long as it's possible, I'm on board.
Shut up. That's not true. I mean, making is not separate from thinking, right? That's the hallmark of our programs. That's our mantra, right? So shut up. But I will say that then we want to say at this mark, at this demarcation line, Frode, we came to the conclusion in the exploration that we've been doing for 3 months that PDFs do not make good documents within the WebXR environment. We're going to move towards another type of document that might provide a more effective way of interacting and reading text. And that's going to be with HTML and other types. So we can actually say that in our document. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. That's very helpful. And I know we're not recording this, so I do want to get that on record.
We are recording this, but we're not making these recordings public.
Okay. All right.
I will put this in our notes, and we will agree on the notes before they become public, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to also say I agree with that. PDF stays outside of WebXR. WebXR is where we do relationships and interactions. Fabian, please.
So I would argue that for the intended audience, namely academics and people managing the project, I think I would feel safe or comfortable saying that right now the best platform to develop for WebXR, which pains me a bit, but the truth is, in terms of features, is the Meta Quest, just for the meta aspect. They do really a good job in terms of the browser. It doesn't do everything we want, but it does a lot, including like pass-through and this kind of things. In terms of resolution, and like I mentioned initially, especially in the context of text, of course, if you have a Vision Pro, you want to use this. But as somebody who would read and try to learn from such an effort as this project, I think people are smart enough to say, hey, imagine if you had the hardware of the Vision Pro inside the software featured in the MetaQuest. And thus, right now, we do this way, but we imagine with a certain level of confidence that in 1 year down the line, 5 years down the line, it's going to be the best of both worlds. The hardware will match. And okay, right now we know that PDF proper looks amazing in the browser of the Vision Pro, but it's not what we can work with efficiently. But yeah, I think people can, that's the point also of the prototypes, in my opinion. It's like they help you to get there, even though it's not either easily available or even feasible right now, but you do you help unlock those ideas in people's minds. So I think people who would read or experience such kind of documents would be smart enough to at least understand it's a viable bet, in my opinion.
I'm perfectly happy with WebXR being primary targets on the quest. That makes complete sense. We are learning now what the different benefits are. The Vision is a Rolls-Royce, but Rolls-Royce isn't useful over other vehicles in specific areas, so that makes sense. So now what we need to decide on is what data should go to the WebXR and how should we get it there. We definitely want all the extractable metadata, the reference section, the abstract if it's available, who wrote the documents, and we need to look at the other about what the interactions we want to have in this space, right? But actually, because this has been going on for months now, let's say that we have a full definition of the metadata, and a user now puts on what Andrew's working on, and there is some kind of a dialogue that says, "Welcome to the future of text lab. Where's your data?" What should they do? Let's be really meat and potatoes or whatever. Should they point to a link where their documents are? Should they point to something like Reader that sends it out? What do we want?
I can picture it as we have several libraries available for users just to dive into if they just want to see functionality. But if they want to see their own, there's a button that lets them upload their own library. And that is just a JSON file. Uploading the JSON file would be really easy in a browser. Most likely exporting the JSON would be done through Reader or Author. That's an assumption I would make.
Okay, so that's fine. I agree with all of that. Dina, you too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I'm
let's say
taking
that.
notes, so I'm taking notes, so I won't forget what I was thinking earlier.
Okay. Oh, by the way, I'll share the secret recording of this with any of you if you want it. It's upload unlisted, that's all.
Rhoda, I'm going to recommend, just quickly, we're going to want this one because this is going to help me base the report.
I can make this one public. We haven't said anything controversial. Should I make it public? Anyone have any issues with that?
I would not do that because we promised Brandel we wouldn't do it. So just give us access, give us in the room access.
None of this is Brandel related or anybody else. And he hasn't said anything to us that would be an issue. It's only when he's talking. He's been so careful anyway. Okay,
right.
I'll just share it with you. Right.
That'd be great. Okay, thank you.
So, okay, so here's the thing we're going to do. When we have Mark back in the room, unfortunately couldn't make it today. He's going to provide, as he kind of already has, a beautiful thing, which is click and you get EACM document metadata. That's A. B, someone is in Reader. They have done things such as, and this is, I think, quite important. They have been selecting text in a document and all those highlights, selected text and highlight, all of those will be in the metadata because they're clearly useful to the reader. They will also maybe have written stuff that we looked at. I'll see if I can implement that. So not only the native metadata, but this stuff too will be accessible to FTL WebXR, to call it that, right? So what should Reader do to be able to shoot that to WebXR? That should be something they ideally set up once, and then the headset and the web and Reader should just talk to each other. Should Reader maybe have a local web server or something that only shoots JSONs or something?
We talked about this at the beginning of our project about a local server. So that, I mean, I think it's fine for us to do that, but I can't imagine asking, I don't know, my colleague Sue Peabody from history to set such a thing up. So it's fine for us, but it's not something that's a long-term solution, right?
I might not be seeing why this is needed, Fred. I'm just picturing a library export not being a super frequent thing. Like you send all of your stuff over.
Oh, no.
Are you picturing like a constant stream of data?
Not constant, but the idea is I'm in Vision, I'm in Reader, I'm doing some highlights, I'm writing some notes under it. Oh, no, I want to go WebXR now, right? So at that point, ideally, because there will be updates.
Wait, do you want to send all of those notes and highlights into the XR mode as well? Is
Yes.
that what you're getting at?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I see.
So
That kind of dramatically changes everything. It's still possible, but okay.
let me just explain. So what I already have in Reader, when you highlight text in a document, Reader knows about that. It keeps it in a database. So that when you search your library, it'll also search for highlighted text. If the example I love to use, just to make it really clear, you read a document, there's the word chocolate, you select and highlight the word chocolate. Even if it isn't at the title of the document or anything, when you're in your library, you type Command F chocolate, it'll find that for you. This is something that reference managers don't do, which I think is completely absurd. And so that data is crucial because it is where the user has said this is important to them. And we already know that. So I can tell the guys to produce a JSON that has all the basic stuff plus this stuff in a format that you would be comfortable with, Andrew. The only complication is that it would be at runtime when you first put the headset on, not during the session, but to prepare for your session.
Yeah, if you want to send that much stuff, that's fine. I can't promise that we'll get everything in XR working the same way because that's just a ton of development time, essentially just copying implementation that's already been done in a different software. So we'll have less new stuff, less of the sort of interactions that we were studying, but we would be able to have more carryover. It's just like budgeting time. We just have to decide what priorities are. It's definitely possible. And if we want to leave it as an option, you'll want to have as much of your potential data saved in this library as possible. So we don't have your developers have to keep adding stuff. And if I can't get to all of it, it's not really that big of a deal. But we still have the option to try for it. And like I would prioritize whatever you guys want me to, but I'm just like laying it out there. I'm the only one working on it, so.
No, absolutely, that's crucial. It's just that in the writing, it says our goal for the software development is to allow a user to put on an XR headset, access their PDF library, read and interact with documents in XR and traditional systems. So we are really saying it is their data. So what is the most efficient way to shoot a JSON up there? And by the way, when I'm talking about a local server, it would be hidden inside Reader. Once the user has set up a few little things, it should just work. But I obviously agree with Dini. It's not a nothing.
Nothing is nothing.
I could maybe see it working if you basically load the web page for this XR mode with like a data in the URL that links to the JSON export that author made. So like in say author or reader, whichever one, you click like send to XR or something, and it grabs all of the data it needs, writes a JSON file, saves the JSON file to your computer in some temporary folder. Then opens the link to the XR experience, but the link at the end has the relative path appended. So you then get that won't exceed the limit because you're not sending the data, you're sending a link to the data. And then once I load it into XR, it sees that there's a path appended there to the link, and then just visits the path and grabs the file. I'd say that's probably the easiest way to do it. No servers needed.
I kind of understood that. I'm going to ask it tangential. Okay, so it is possible for any application to send a URL to a browser, of course, send a link, right? Can that link open something? No, of course it can open something externally, but we found
If the browser may try to block this because it's accessing files, but if you allow permissions, I think it should work. We're gonna have to do some testing.
Yeah, I mean, isn't there a way where all this metadata can be included at the end of a URL?
It'll exceed the character limit real fast.
Honestly, I don't think it's a. I understand all the reliability and avoiding redirection and all this. Like that's the proper way in a prototyping environment where we test things that are not those. I would skip that. Like if the URL redirects to a server, even installed on my grandmother basement, and it's clear, like it's not cheating, and it redirects to the file and the metadata and a ton of stuff, and it makes everybody's life easier and the demo more understandable. In my opinion, it's an okay.
Wait, were you saying don't use real data? Don't use, just have preview data? You guys have to treat me like a 3-year-old right now. I'm quite lost as to the subtleties of this.
Was the question for me?
Yeah, from what you just said now. What was the
No,
essence
so
of that?
I'm saying get a URL, and that URL redirects. So it's a normal URL, and it redirects to either the file itself or the file with a set of JSON for more data. Again, it's not. As soon as you have a redirection, you assume the server will exist and it will work properly. So it makes it arguably less reliable and you need to be online, etc. But I think in that context of exploring novel interaction for academic, I don't want to say reading, but interaction with academic materials, that's an okay assumption. I would assume most academics have internet access, and the one that will use XR will definitely have internet access. And so saying, oh, the server is in reader or in glitch or on the headset itself, I understand again your concern in terms of will it hold in 5 years, but I think the project is not 5 years long, and I would say if it holds for one day, the day of the demo, and there is a big asterisk that doesn't hide that fact that it is, let's say, a point of risk that a server is needed, and it can be a free glitch.com server or whatever. I think that's okay. I would say it doesn't hinder the testing of novel ways to interact with academic document in XR.
Let me
Okay.
respond to that. Fabian, that's a great point. We don't have 5 years, we have 2. But we have the option of re-upping this grant. So we want to get to a point in the 2-year period where we can say to Sloan, here's where we are and here's where we want to head next. And ask for another 3 years, right? And they'll be more apt to give us 3 years after a 2-year success. So what I'm saying is it's always good to plan for the big picture and then set up the step-by-step to get there so that to your point, this is what we're delivering and this is what we're going to ask for next. So thank you for that.
So one thing we can do, because from the very beginning, we talked about the middle layer of how to get stuff up being many options. I do have a full server I can do whatever I want with. So if we get some basic server stuff that basically is a JSON redirect, that's fine. Andrew, you can have full access to that. We can put whatever software we want on there.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be super easy if you just, it's the same thing I was just suggesting, but you don't have to worry about local files. If author just uploads to that server and then the XR downloads from that server, that's pretty easy.
So if you could write a paragraph of, or if ideally, if you could even provide us a sample JSON, just with a few things, and write how you want to learn where that is, because now we're dealing with the basic user stuff. So so Dini installs Reader on her headset or on her computer, and she then tells this Reader software that she has access to this future text WebXR software. That software will already know the software that our web stuff already exists. But what is the process of telling the system so that once she puts the headset on, she gets her data, not someone else's? Sorry for being very convoluted over the most basic thing there.
I mean, we'd probably just, this would be something that'd be handled by, say, Reader. Just when you upload, so you export the JSON, and it uploads to the server. You would create some kind of ID or like a hash or something that represents that upload. And it'd be randomized and made sure that it's unique. That's not that complicated.
So what,
And then
what
it just sits
does
on the
it look
server
like?
with all the others with its unique ID. And that ID is passed over on the link to the XR version. So then I know where to go and find it.
Okay, so to say that back, we could maybe just use the user's email address because that's going to be unique, right?
Yeah, but then you'd only be able to ever do one upload.
No, but to use that, and then you have, okay, so in Reader, user gives their email address and clicks a button saying, I have WebXR stuff. The WebXR headset, first time you use it, you say, well, who are you? Here's my email address. The WebXR headset then goes to the server to see if there's anything new and takes it up. Wouldn't that work?
Oh, you just want it to only ever grab the one library over and over again? I guess you could.
Yeah, the initial library, of course, if the user chooses in the future to have more than one library, we can get into that. But I think that's a complication we don't need to worry about now.
Yeah, you're right. Probably beyond what we need to do right now. Yeah, that should work. Now, yeah, having the email like just appended to the link can totally work. That's not that complicated, actually. I guess the file would just be saved with the email as the name, most likely.
Just replying to Rob here. Please repeat, Andrew.
No, I was just kind of like vocalizing what we were just talking about, where the link would now just have the WebXR link would just have the email address appended to the end when it gets opened through Reader. And then the file name on the server would just be the email address. Like that's the name of the file. And that probably would work pretty well.
Okay, so I like what I'm hearing. I like this idea. So what you're saying is that when you're in Reader, it asks for your email address. You put it in. And the email address is then sent to our server, which creates an account with that name, that folder name, so to speak. User then clicks a button in Reader, and a link is generated that at the end of it has their email address, so that when the WebXR is launched through the link, it uses that information to find the folder. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't think it would be a folder. It'd most likely just be a single file, but
Yeah, but
depends on how many different uploads you need.
yeah, okay, that's
Yeah, we could do a folder for just so we can build off of it if we ever need to. That might be smart. But for this project, we'll probably only ever have one library per email address. And for testing, you could just put in a fake email address to generate another one.
looking at what Fabian, can you explain what that is?
Sure, just as an example, I imported one document or URL in Zotero from a nature page, exported as a library. So it's the CSL JSON format I mentioned. And I saved it on a WebDAV server, which allows not just to get that file. If you click on it, it's just a web page and you grab it, fine. But as WebDAV, you can also write it back, assuming you have the right credential, straight from the browser. You don't need to. So it's like a file system, a remote file system, kind of. So it's still a real file. It's still something that can be exchanged. So if somebody else use it and they don't have the right, they can just read it. And if it's saved properly, so again as CSL JSON, then Zotero should be able to open that modified library, for example, changing, removing reference, or change the order, and just use it as normal. I just use Zotero as an example because that's it worked, and it's relatively popular and it's open source, namely that if somebody wanted to make an open in WebXR page straight up the Zotero, not even plugin, but menu, and open, let's say, html.link page or whatever, to go back and forth from the headset, I imagine that would be relatively straightforward.
So I think this is great. What I think I understand is that what should happen is that I get my guys to set up a WebDAV server on the Future Text Lab website with the system that Andrew is aware of. When a user leaves Reader to go to the headset, a link is sent to the browser in the headset that includes two things. It includes their email address as their ID, and it includes something that references the WebDAV, because the WebDAV can change over time. And the WebXR software knows that the reference for WebDAV is temporary, so it'll look up what it knows to be the WebDAV. So the URL would look something like futuretextlab.info/webxr/client server, because that will be the name that will be used as a thing, token, that will be exchanged, /DiniGrigar@icloud.com or whatever it is. That will then make sure that Reader at the same time has put this data on that server. Let's not forget that, otherwise this won't happen. And it means that the WebXR will be able to access that data. And as you said, Fabienne, if that data is changed, such as someone adds a highlight while in WebXR or a note, that'll be written back. And Reader will then have the job of checking if there is a change, and if so, choosing to incorporate it or not. Is that correct?
That sounds correct from the sense of us just brainstorming. Should work in theory. It'll take some testing to verify a lot of this, but yeah, as long as you're getting the data up on a server, we can get it down in one way or another.
So that also means that we can indeed, as a bonus, have the actual full PDF in the headset. Should the reader, for whatever crazy reason, want to look at it, but we will focus our interactions on the metadata and wider interactions. The full PDFs will be uploaded after the metadata, right? Yeah, yeah, I see your message there, Fabian. Okay, I'm very grateful for our clarifications and simplifications here. I'd like you, Andrew, to please focus on this for the next few days. So that on Monday,
It's unfortunately I can't because we don't even have the importing working yet. So I think we need to get the importing working before we start importing from a server. That's what I've been working on right now to lay the groundwork for this. But it's not like an easy task, so I'm not going to have it by Monday, unfortunately.
no,
I'll be doing my best.
that's fine. Before, oh yeah, okay, Fabian, you gotta go. That's fine. Thank you very much for being here today. Just want to address Peter's concern here. Okay, why don't we just do this then? We'll do this is just a suggestion to the community. In addition to adding your email address, you also add a password, which is made clear is not a private password. But that password will be included in the URL. Let's not even call it a password. Let's call it a pet name or token or something, so that it isn't super easy to just guess someone else's email address. It would have to guess
An
the email.
access code. It's an access code.
Thank you.
Let's just ditch the entire email thing and just have it generate like a 6-digit code that it saves it as, and you just put that code in your headset.
Yeah,
Because then you could also share that if you want.
So when you first open up the headset, it says, "Who are you?" and you copy and paste or type that 6-digit access code.
Yeah, or 8, depending on how secure we want to be, but 6 should be fine.
So that means that in Reader, you would have to enter this code, and it does that. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. I don't know, if you want people to enter the code, then maybe they do just make their own username. Um,
I'm
but we
happy.
don't need email and username is what I'm saying. We just need to pick one
Yeah, no,
because we don't care about security for it.
I'm fine with the. It would be really annoying if someone just realizes they can use their professor's email address and they can see what they're doing. So, you know, hey, we may get lucky. This may take off despite just being kind of a demo. So let's be a little. Yeah, we'll do a number. We'll just do. Let's do a 7-digit because it's in between. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Something
So-
that's short so we can remember it. I mean, I don't want it to be like 16 characters just to keep out the riffraff.
It depends on if you're able to customize it yourself or if it's generated randomly. If it's generated randomly, you want to keep it under 8 because it's hard to remember otherwise. If you can make your own, you could let them go up to 12 or something, then it's just a username at that point. Either one's fine. We just need a pick.
Okay, how about there are systems that'll generate code names. So maybe just 2 words. That they exist, right? It's easier to remember, you know, rat poison than a long number. Does that make sense?
Yeah, people will, if you're giving them actual like discernible names though, people are gonna then want to change that because they're gonna be like, I don't want to be rat poison. I
No,
want to
but
be something
no,
else.
no, but aren't there systems that have kind of cleaned them up so there aren't, you know, bad words like swear words or violent words or racist words or all that kind of stuff?
Right, but if you give somebody like a discernible name, they're gonna want to be able to customize it. That's just human nature. Maybe we don't care. Maybe because this is kind of just an academic thing.
Well, it's nice to just keep moving if you know over the next many years of this. So maybe we go back to the whole idea of having name or email address plus 1 or 2 characters then. Just, you know,
Yeah, it ultimately doesn't matter from a programmer perspective. Anything that's unique and isn't easily guessed by someone else unless you choose to share it.
okay, email address plus 4 numbers. That's reasonable to remember, no? Anyway, this can always be redecided later. So looking at our agenda here, I think we've done quite well. One thing we really need to do now is look more at case studies. And Rob and Peter, you're not students at the moment, no professors, but your case studies are very relevant too. So if you feel like writing down, I'm on a computer, I want to do this. I'm in a headset, I want to do this. That is extremely valuable. I want to try to do that myself as well. Just going through. Okay, anything else for today? Are we actually, for once in history, finishing a bit early?
I had something else I wanted to bring up and now I can't remember what it was. It was very important.
Oh, that was important.
I hate when I do that. It wasn't about Sunday. You and I need to talk about Sunday, like what we're gonna actually, I don't know. Do we have a formal presentation on Sunday?
I think we've.
Oh, I remember what it was. We need to start thinking about the hypertext conference and what we're gonna be giving a paper on. I mean, we're gonna give a demo, right? The demo is a no-brainer, but are we gonna do a paper? And if that's the case, you and I need to start writing it.
I think we need to do that, but I think it probably is useful to think about it in terms of a presentation, and then paper and demo comes out of that, where, you know, I want
Well,
to.
nothing you do at hypertext is without a paper, remember? I mean, you have
Yeah,
to write
sure.
a paper.
It can also be framed as a paper, but I really think it needs to be quite big, which is why it shouldn't be just one thing. of course, our WebXR will be the centerpiece of it. It, you know, that should be part of a flow, so we need to think about that. But Dini, should we try to talk on Friday then?
Yeah, that'd be a good day for me. I have let me see, I've got a few things on my schedule. I know I've got skin cancer, so I gotta get some skin cancer work done on my
Oh, okay.
body. That's no big deal. It happens all the time. Eastern European skin, right?
Right.
It's my
Indeed.
mother. So I've got that on Friday. Thought there was something else.
Tomorrow's also fine for me.
Let's shoot for Friday, and let's shoot for like something like 9 in the morning.
So that's an hour after today, right?
Yeah. And by the way, next week, folks, we'll be back on the same timeline, right?
We will indeed. So we will stick to American time. Only us Brits will change. Yeah. Okay. I'll see all of you on Monday, and Dini, I'll see you on Friday.
Right.
I'll see you an hour ago now, so to speak.
All right. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye for today.
Thank you.